I should have known better. The moment we stepped out of the airport, my mother reached over and snatched my purse like it was her right. "We'll be using your credit card for this trip," she said, smiling like it was some kind of privilege for me. I didn't argue, I just smiled back and pulled out my phone, pretending to check messages. I had been waiting for this moment. She dug through my purse, found my wallet, and pulled out the sleek, gold-edged card. With a triumphant look, she turned it over in her fingers, already planning which high-end stores and five-star restaurants she'd be dragging us to. Then my phone buzzed. I didn't even have to show her. The bank notification lit up my screen, and curiosity got the best of her. She snatched the phone from my hand, her eyes scanning the message. Her smug expression twisted into something else. Confusion, then shock. Her fingers trembled as she gripped the phone tighter. "What is this?" she hissed, voice dropping to a sharp whisper. I leaned in just enough to read the words again, even though I already knew what they said. "Suspicious activity detected. Account locked. Contact bank immediately." I shrugged, feigning innocence. Guess they thought something was off. She wasn't buying it. Her lips pressed into a thin line, and I could practically hear her heartbeat racing. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. For the first time in years, I had the upper hand. And I wasn't about to let go of it. Growing up, money was never mine. Oh, I earned it. I worked summer jobs, saved birthday cash, even tried freelancing online. But the moment it hit my account, my mother had a way of making it disappear. "It's for the family," she'd say, taking my paycheck. "You live under my roof, so you contribute." If I dared to argue, she'd tilt her head and give me that look. The one that made me feel selfish, ungrateful. She'd remind me how she sacrificed everything for me, how without her I'd have nothing. When I got my first credit card, I thought maybe, just maybe, I'd have a little financial independence. I was wrong. She demanded the details, kept it in her own purse, and used it whenever she pleased. "You'll thank me one day," she'd say, swiping it like it was her own. And if I complained? "You don't know how to manage money. I'm protecting you from yourself." I wasn't allowed to have savings. Anytime I tried, she'd find out. "What do you need savings for?" she'd ask with a sharp laugh. "You planning to run away?" Honestly, I was. That's why this vacation was supposed to be different. I had spent months preparing, carefully moving money, securing a new account she didn't know about. I wanted one trip, just one, where I wasn't a hostage to her control. But the moment she grabbed my purse, I knew she had no intention of changing. She still thought she owned me. She had no idea what was coming. I watched as my mother's fingers clutched my credit card, her nails tapping against the plastic like she was already hearing the approval chime of an expensive transaction. She had that satisfied smirk, the one she always wore when she thought she had everything under control. Then my phone buzzed. I glanced down at the screen, and for a moment I almost laughed. I hadn't expected the bank to act this fast. Before I could react, she snatched the phone from my hand. She always did that, took things without asking, like she was entitled to every part of me. But this time, she wasn't ready for what she was about to see. Her eyes darted over the notification, and I saw her expression shift from confidence to confusion. Then, panic. Her lips parted slightly, and she reread the message, like she was hoping she'd misunderstood. "Unauthorized transaction detected. Your account has been locked for suspicious activity. Please contact us immediately." Her grip tightened on both the card and the phone. "What is this?" Her voice was sharp, low, controlled, but I could hear the cracks beneath it. I tilted my head, pretending to be just as confused. Looks like the bank flagged the account. She wasn't buying it. Her breathing grew uneven, and her fingers moved fast across the screen, scrolling, checking, searching for a way to undo this. But there was nothing she could do. The account was frozen. I saw it then, the rarest thing in the world, my mother powerless. Her gaze snapped back to me, suspicion clouding her eyes. "Did you do this?" she demanded. I gave her the same innocent smile she had given me countless times when she took my money, my independence. My choices. You always told me to be responsible with my finances, I said, shrugging. Guess I finally learned how. Her face flushed red, her jaw tightening like she wanted to scream but couldn't. Not here, not in public. For the first time in my life, she was the one stuck and I was the one walking away. I knew this moment would come. My mother was predictable, always had been. Every time I had money, she found a way to take it. It wasn't a question of if she'd use my credit card on this trip, only when. So this time, I stayed one step ahead. A week before we left, I sat in my room, my laptop open, my heart racing. I had spent months carefully saving what little money I could, tucking away extra cash whenever possible. I knew if she found out, she'd guilt-trip me into handing it over. So I got smart. I opened a new bank account, one she didn't know about, one she couldn't touch. It wasn't easy. She had a habit of checking my emails, so I used a different address. She liked to hover when I was online, so I made sure to do everything when she was asleep. Then, the most important step, I transferred every last cent out of my usual account. I left just enough for it to seem normal, but not enough for her to use. My credit card? I left it dry. Not a single usable dollar remained. I stared at the empty account balance with a strange mix of fear and satisfaction. This was it. My way out. Now, standing here watching her panic as she tried to use my card, I knew it had worked. She pressed the card between her fingers like she could force it to work through sheer willpower. Then she tried again, checking the balance, scrolling through transactions, searching for something that wasn't there. Nothing. Her nostrils flared and she turned to me, her voice dangerously low. "Where's the money?" I smiled, the same way she always had when she took things from me. "Oh, you mean my money?" I tilted my head. "Safe." Her jaw tightened. "You little—" She stopped herself, glancing around, remembering we were in public. She wasn't about to cause a scene. Not yet. I could see the realization dawning in her eyes. For the first time, she couldn't control this, couldn't control me. And God, it felt good. My mother's face went pale, then red, then something in between, like she couldn't decide if she wanted to scream or pass out. I watched as she pressed my credit card against the counter, flipping it over, running her thumb along the numbers like maybe, just maybe. She had picked up the wrong one by mistake. She hadn't. Her fingers flew across my phone screen, checking my account balance. Nothing. Just a big fat zero staring back at her. Her breathing grew shallow. I could practically hear the calculations running through her head. The hotel, the restaurants, the shopping sprees she had planned. None of it could happen without money. Her eyes snapped to mine. "Fix this," I blinked. "Fix what?" She shoved the phone toward me, her voice shaking now. "Call the bank. Tell them to unlock the account." I pretended to consider it, tilting my head. "Huh, but didn't you say I don't know how to manage my own money? Maybe this is for the best." Her nostrils flared. "Call them now!" People were starting to look. A couple at the front desk stole quick glances in our direction. A man adjusting his suitcase smirked as if he had seen this play out before. My mother saw them too. She inhaled sharply and dropped her voice to a dangerous whisper. "I swear to God, if you don't fix this, we are going home." That should have been a threat, but to me, it sounded like freedom. I crossed my arms. "All right." I pulled out my phone, pretending to scroll through contacts. "I'll call the bank, but I should probably remind them that I'm the account holder, and since I'm the only one authorized." I trailed off, letting the words sink in. Her face twisted, torn between rage and desperation. For the first time, she was the one without options. Fix this. She wasn't just angry now, she was scared. I met her glare with a smile. Maybe later. And with that, I turned and walked away, letting her panic grow. I took my time. I wanted to enjoy this. For years, my mother had controlled everything. My money, my choices, my freedom. But now she was the one spiraling, scrambling for a way to fix something she couldn't fix. She was still gripping my phone like she could force it to give her what she wanted. Her fingers were tight around it, knuckles pale. She kept refreshing the banking app, hoping the balance would magically change. It wouldn't. Finally, she looked up at me, her voice low but sharp. "What did you do?" I shrugged, letting the moment stretch. "I did what you always told me to do." I smiled sweetly. "I protected myself." Her eyes narrowed. "From what?" I leaned in just a little. "From you." Her nostrils flared. "That's ridiculous. I take care of you. Everything I've done." I laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh, you mean like when you emptied my first paycheck? Or when you used my card for a family emergency that turned out to be a shopping spree?" I shook my head. "Yeah, thanks for taking care of me." Her face darkened. "You're being dramatic." "Oh, absolutely," I said, crossing my arms. "But here's the thing, I did call the bank." Something flickered in her expression. She stepped closer. "And?" I held her gaze, letting the next words sink in. "Turns out you can protect yourself from financial leeches. Who knew?" Her jaw clenched so tightly I thought her teeth might crack. She wanted to scream, but she couldn't. Not here. Not with all these people around. For the first time in my life, I had the power. And she knew it. She gritted her teeth. "You owe me." I tilted my head. "Do I?" Silence. She had nothing left to take from me. No money, no control, nothing. And for the first time, I was free. I turned on my heel, ready to walk away, but I paused just long enough to watch it happen. My mother stood frozen, phone in one hand, my useless credit card in the other. Her mouth opened, then closed, like she wanted to argue but couldn't find the right words. For the first time in her life, there was no backup plan, no last-minute manipulation, no way to twist this in her favor. She had spent years controlling me. Now she was the one stuck. Behind her, I saw the hotel staff approaching. 2 polite but firm-looking employees in neatly pressed uniforms. One of them, a woman with a tight ponytail and a clipboard, offered a practiced smile. "Ma'am, we just need to settle your check-in payment before you can receive your room key." I could actually hear my mother swallow. Her fingers twitched around my credit card, but she already knew it wouldn't work. She turned slightly, throwing me a desperate look, the kind she never used, pleading, almost. I raised an eyebrow. Something wrong? Her nostrils flared, and she straightened her shoulders, trying to regain some of her usual authority. "I'll handle it," she snapped, waving me off. But her confidence was shaky now, the cracks beginning to show. The hotel employee continued to smile. "Would you like to use another card, Ma'am?" I bit back a grin. My mother hesitated. I knew exactly what was happening. She was running through her options in her head, realizing she didn't have many. She had assumed my money would fund this trip. Now she was left with her own. And that was something she hated to spend. She let out a tight laugh, pretending like this was just a minor inconvenience. "Of course, let me just..." She dug into her own purse, pulling out her personal credit card. I caught the slight tremor in her hand as she passed it over. The employee took it with a nod. "I'll be right back." My mother wouldn't look at me now. She kept her eyes locked on some distant spot in the lobby. Her jaw clenched. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. "Enjoy the trip, Mom." Then, without waiting for a reply, I walked away, leaving her to deal with the mess she had created. I walked through the hotel lobby with my head high, feeling lighter than I had in years. For once, my mother wasn't in control. No threats, no guilt trips, no stolen money. Just her standing there, scrambling to cover the bill with her own card. I had won. Or so I thought. My phone buzzed in my pocket, probably another security alert confirming the account log. I pulled it out, still smirking, ready to see my victory spelled out in text. Then my stomach dropped. "Account access restored, transaction approved, $10,000 wire transfer. Thank you for banking with us." My breath caught in my throat. What? No, that wasn't possible. I had locked everything down, changed passwords, added extra security. There was no way she... A slow, satisfied chuckle rose behind me. I turned, and there she was. My mother, arms crossed, phone in hand, watching me with that smirk, the one that always meant she had the upper hand, the one that used to make my skin crawl. problem?" she asked, tilting her head. I couldn't speak. My brain was still trying to process what had just happened. How did she do it? I had set up two-factor authentication. I had frozen the account myself. There was no way she could have... Then it hit me. The bank call. I thought I had outsmarted her, but in reality I had done exactly what she wanted. When I called to lock the account, she had listened, studied my every move. And the moment I felt safe, she must have called them back. Pretending to be me, answering security questions she knew by heart, she had always been one step ahead. "Did you really think you could beat me at my own game?" she asked, her voice smooth, dripping with amusement. "Sweetheart, I taught you everything you know." I clenched my jaw, my grip tightening around my phone. "That money wasn't yours," she shrugged. "It was in your account. And as you've said before, your money, your choices." She winked. "I just made one for you." Anger boiled in my chest, but I couldn't afford to explode. Not here. Not now. I inhaled sharply. "Enjoy the trip, Mom," I said, echoing my own words from before, but this time they tasted bitter. She laughed. "Oh, I will." As I walked away, heart pounding, one thought kept running through my mind. I had played the game, but she had won.